Well, there we go.
Yeah.
And that's how we open the show, all corned out, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Welcome to the Church of Failure. Tonight we have a special guest, Rex Christensen from the
Just
Devil
Christian.
Flyer,
Just
Devil's
Christian.
Weapon comic. What is it?
Just Christian.
Just Christian.
Yeah, people
Okay.
would go, "Oh, you were born a Christian." Well, I really wasn't. I was adopted, so I didn't know how to answer that. But now I do. But by the grace of God, I am one. So
That's what I say about being Southern.
and yeah, I'm in Northeast Arkansas. And what's wild is last year, through my daughter's DNA test, my biological sister that I didn't even know existed, she knew that I existed for like 30 years, but didn't know how to find me. Her father passed away here in town where I live. We have relatives here in town and just like out of town. And, she thought she didn't even know if I was in the same state, because that was 58 years ago when I was born. So.
Well, I claim a humble abode here in Toadsuck, Arkansas myself. So
Do you really? Okay.
I do
wow.
indeed.
I know where Toadsuck is. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But now the Toadsuck celebration is not held in Toadsuck.
I know. It used to be the Woodstock of Arkansas.
It's in what's it in It's not Conway. It's Have I got that wrong? I think it's down there.
It's in Conway, Arkansas. Yeah.
Is it in Conway? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I actually went down there and sprayed mosquitoes for them one season. That's what I've done for the last 11 years. This will be my 12th year this year.
Okay.
And we have the city contracts, and I go to Wynn and Purgold, Pocahontas, all those places nobody knows. Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little rinky dink. I mean, Tennessee and Kentucky get all the growth. So
I didn't realize that Toadsuck, that they held anything in Conway on the festival. That's actually a pretty nice town. At least they had a Krispy Kreme.
It got so big with the tourism coming in it.
Yeah.
In and out,
it's a university.
Just got too small.
It's a university.
Yeah.
City. That helps with the roundabouts and everything. I'd never even seen a roundabout, really. Until I went.
They're all over Ohio. I just got back from a weekend in Wooster, Ohio, which is right outside of Akron.
And, you poor soul. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Well, see, I was born and raised in a little town in South Carolina, and I can effectively say that we have a lot of Ohio transplants in South Carolina. And I figured out why while I was in Wooster, Ohio, and that's because it's exactly the same with the exception of the weather. So if you live in South Carolina and want cold weather, go to Ohio. If you live in Ohio and want warm weather, go to South Carolina.
Well, now you probably know where Newport is, Tuckerman, Swifton, the general area, or do you?
Kind of. I mean, I'm relatively new to the area.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, I went over with my neighbor. I took her for a cancer treatment over there, or they did some tests or something. I think that's what it was. It wasn't because she just a biopsy or something. I don't know. And I sit down to this guy that was waiting on his wife, and he said, I bet I come from a small town in Arkansas that you probably never heard of, Tuckerman. Well, I've got family that lives in Tuckerman. And he had left Tuckerman and lived and worked and was very successful. And I guess retired over there in Germantown, where the facility was. And he didn't live far from there. But he had lived there in Memphis since 1959. Which was amazing. And his wife was from Poplar Bluff, which I've also been there. But, he thought he'd stump me with that one. I'm like, no, I know exactly where Tuckerman is. My father and brother farm down that way. And I've got relatives that live there and live in Tuckerman. But, I've absolutely been through BB and Toadsuck and Romance and All these
It's
places.
there was a very eclectic naming convention going on when the settlers founded this area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we can tell by all the stuff behind you. You're obviously very, very deep into comics and sci-fi and fiction culture. I see a Green Lantern down there. Bravo for that. That's the original Hal Jordan Green Lantern, if I'm not mistaken. Or is that the Alan Scott? Okay. But how did you find yourself writing, or you write or draw this comic, or both?
I write, and I'm doing some drawing, background and stuff. I'm working on the last, sort of laying it out, cobbling it together like an old
like a patchwork quilt.
Yeah, patchwork quilt. That's right.
How did you find yourself producing a comic from being a big fan of the media?
Well, when I saw the crowdfunding and the distribution a few years ago on YouTube here, what came over, and caught some. I'd been on YouTube before and kind of, social media. I really didn't have a social media presence, imprint whatsoever. I wasn't on Twitter. I wasn't on Twitch. I wasn't on Facebook. Well, Facebook I was, and Facebook,
but not a consumer Facebook, just like a family
I'm just not,
Facebook kind of thing.
I'm a stay-at-home dude, and world build and whatnot. I do want to say hi to Rune, since he popped in here.
My mama was country girl from Pennsylvania, and she raised me right. So when a couple of good old boys get to talking, I choose not to interrupt.
Okay, that'll work.
Also, it's okay not to say hi to the help when they come into the room.
Right. I mean, Rue's the degenerate.
Ayrton, I didn't say hi to you. I just let you sit there. What are you talking about?
Ayrton was finishing his corn.
Yeah, I was finishing my corn.
But we normally would have one more. Our friend Larry is off gallivanting around this week, but
good. You won't gang up on me too bad then.
Oh no. We're normally pretty good with guests.
Yeah, that's good, because Cross said it's going to be hell on our tribulation.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, no, for Cross, absolutely. No, we're good with other guests.
Oh, okay. All right.
We're not going to let Dillard in here. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Dillard's actually got some artwork in my book, so anyway.
Oh, he's a phenomenal artist.
Yeah,
we love Dillard, but
Doc Blaylock has some artwork in there. How many? We've got I've got Keith Gleason doing some lettering. A lot of the lettering. My friend though of like over 40 years, he drew the main thing. It's got a golden age flair to it.
Let's show the people what we're talking about here. So we've got Devil Flyers, A Devil's Weapon, an epic size 48-page one shot. A tortured soul comes back to Earth to save it. Can he? Will the price of Devil Flyer's soul spell the end of existence as we know it? And we've got a trailer here, so let's go ahead and pull that up. All right. So just based on that trailer, sight unseen, I'm getting a feel of maybe a little Justice Society of America, a little Hawkman, a little Swamp Thing,
Well,
kind of.
Well, you might have been better had Larry been here actually, because I am a connoisseur of occult and supernatural comics, so I have to ask in terms of inspirations. What I was getting was, just correct me if I'm wrong. There's some Ghost Rider, there's some Hellstorm. There's maybe not so much Spawn, because obviously you're aiming for a more classic comics angle than Todd McFarlane.
That's funny.
But
yeah.
But there's some Dr. Fate and some Deadman. And as Church said, Swamp Thing, obviously.
Yeah. Swamp Thing, Dr. Fate, Doctor Strange. He was kind of looked at as a Doctor Strange, and I was laughing because absolutely. And when you see the Golden Age cover and the Spawn-like energy, the Spawn resurrected types, archetype is definitely there.
Well, for us whack jobs, there's also Faust, which came out at about the same time, but is super obscure.
Oh, I know Faust by Tim Vigil. Absolutely.
And of course, it's funny that we're talking to you now, because earlier this week the trailer for the Crow remake came out. So I am certain everybody else is going to go, oh, like the Crow. It's like, no, this is clearly not the Crow.
No, Brandon Lee, he's gone. He's dead.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean,
they're doing it again with Bill Skarsgård, and I'm going to remain hopefully optimistic, because
I'm going to try.
At least some of the iconography of that initial trailer kind of harkens back to the original comic book story, which they diverted away from in the original.
That's the lure. Don't look into the light, Lord.
But no, what I'm saying is, if I was a fully unknowing person who breathed through my mouth and didn't have breakfast this morning, I would come up on Devil Flower and go, oh, it's going to be like the Crow. And it's like, no, this is very clearly a much more classic comics, if not infernal, at least it's a presumably magical superhero that is more active superhero.
It is. And he does make a sort of fast in pack with a chaotic sort of creature.
Right.
And so he's not a free agent at this time. He's kind of got a puppet master pulling his strings, but
the ultimate question is it action and adventure oriented, or is it introspective and ruminating on the nature of good and evil, or do you kind of do an in between?
Yes, it's both. It's all. It's I'm not, at first I got with John, my neighbor. I moved over here about a decade ago, close to him, and we've been neighbors for, he's a couple blocks away from me. We've known each other since 1982, over 40 years, and great designer. And I pitched him I created Devil Flyer in 2018 as a character. I gave him like a Nightcrawler tail, which looks like the old Gothic, Devil's tail. I gave him a trident, gave him wings, hence that, okay, what I call this new character, Devil Flyer. So, and he controls these things called Demon Flyer. That was kind of like the secondary name that I was thinking about naming him, but I thought, no, Devil Flyer's better. It sounds a little odd, at first, but so did Ninja Turtles. But yeah, he's definitely got, with the wings, like a Hawkman type thing. In the way I originally had him with a more angular Romanesque, like, Centurion. That's kind of how I looked at him. And the art, John kind of redesigned that. So we I leaned into that. I leaned into, with John Dillard, when we were creating the cover, which was going to be the cover for Devil Flyer #1, this prequel magazine. So it is the first story, and so many people are like, just call it #1. No, I don't know. Hey, Edwin. So and he does have like had up till the point of making this cover, and this is going to be a standee as well. It's also a 6 a.m. sticker, so getting a lot of use out of that pose. I told 6 a.m.
Sam's amazing.
I tried to get him for a
church
year and he
character.
said, I'm too busy, can't do it now. And then right after Devil Flyer launched, he said, I'm open for commissions. And so I gave him one and he had it. And I'm just going to give it away free to every backer. If you signed up, you get a free full card of Devil Flyer. We've unlocked one trading card. The card you really want when you back and that you'll like getting is the Devil Flyer fan club charter member card, because that entitles you to other gifts from me through the mail. Just when, cards, and I'd love to do a decoder ring. I want to bring back some of that stuff that wasn't even around when I was a kid, from the golden age of things. But and a lot of people have said, John's has a golden age, and I can see that, but it really wasn't that prescient since I've known him so long on my mind. And so, Doc Blaylock, who I worked with, he did the Bog story. He had a similar story, and he said, well, and we got to talking about a possible story. I write all the stories in this, by the way, and I really, about the time that right before I started I created Devil Flyer in 2018. In 2017, I was a caregiver. Second time I've been a caregiver in my life. Cared for a guy for like 6 years. Then he passed away. And then after that, through that guy, the contacts of that guy, the same church, he looked me up. He just got out. He had a broke arm. They had his very unsteady on his feet, a little overweight, just and we got him straightened out, but he sadly I found him passed away in his living room. But that's when I started writing, because I had to be on call all night long. He'd call me in there every 10 minutes. So I couldn't sleep. So I started writing, and that's been, I guess God knows what you need when you need it, so started writing, but a couple of years ago, when I guess it's 2021, I started, backing some of the crowdfunders right off the get-go after the pandemic. Took some of that Trump money and sunk it in. I thought, I can't expect this community to back me if I haven't backed some of their projects. So, and I know that it's all good stuff, but then when I really dug my heels deep into saying, okay, the main Devil Flyer story is not enough. It needs to be more epic. It needs have more scope than just the 28-page story that we did. Then I started writing backup stories, and that's where all the other characters come in from, and they're all over the spectrum. I mean, I've got characters that I've created as a kid back in the 70s. I've got my Aquaman type character, Sea Demon. He's from 1993. There's another character I know, Zigzag, that you'll see down here as a speedster. He's kind of like my model, my little mascot for the company, Momentum, because we're all about the speed and the action. But I'm not limiting myself. I've had time to think about it the last couple of years, and like the Bog story is kind of like a pseudo horror story. I just created this Western character here. So we're going to go all over the place with this. It's going to be comprehensive. It's all going to be rolled into the Devil Flyer story, though, this arc of it. And it starts with the Devil's Weapon here. The story is about the Devil's Weapon, the Trident, kind of featured around that. He's in modern day Chicago. There he is looking over Chicago. This is actually page 2 and 3 of the story. Page 1 plunges you into the story. If you go up a little bit further, he's sinking. There you go. He's sinking under the boat. They're throwing him off. By page 16, you've totally forgot about this. That was kind of like an incident taken out of Spider-Man. I couldn't tell you what issue, but I just remember opening one up as a kid and seeing Spider-Man sinking, and I was immediately enthralled by the story.
Right, because you want to know how he got there, but then once you get into the story, you've forgotten all about why you started.
I did. I reread this about a couple months ago from the file, just to kind of go over it again. And by page 16, when they're throwing him over the boat, I said, "Oh, I forgot this was going to happen."
I mean,
And I wrote it. I wrote it a couple years ago.
I mean,
I've actually been sitting on this story for 2 years. In the meantime, on Indiegogo, we did a 24-page ash can. We did 2 magnets, 2 trading cards, and 3 bookmarks with that campaign, over $1,300 with the ash can. Very pleased with that. And so my comics,
and that covered all of your production cost and everything for the extras and whatnot. Like, you didn't have to come out of pocket at all for that.
Oh yeah. I've been coming out of pocket for that for years.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that helped the sale of the ash can. It definitely, helped in not only producing that, but making enough to, pay for some artwork. I've had artists not come through for me. I'm still waiting on some art. I had a bad experience with my main artist, and that I hope does not set me back too much. But I've got Jimmy Reyes. I've been building. I've done a daily show, as I said, the 4 o'clock shadow on Shadow Hawk, who's a big backer, who's backed over 400 projects himself, which is amazing. I think I don't have my full record on Indiegogo of backers, so I'll have to contact them about that. But I reckon I've backed about 60 or more projects at this point. But I've really had to sink, a lot of money.
Oh yeah, it's not a cheap excursion. It's not like going to the comic book store when we were kids.
I mean, I had to make the sacrifice actually, unless I want to sell other things from my collection. And I've absolutely, traded off some John Buscema drawings and other things like that to get, things done. Sometimes an artist, you can skip to the head of line on commission if you have something they want. So you kind of trade for it,
Right.
Yeah. So that's been helpful. Jimmy Reyes cover should be dropping here within the next couple of weeks. That's a wraparound cover. Dillard worked, including Devil Flyer there. There's 14 characters on that. I think the ash can had like 16 or 17 first cameo appearances of characters. So to me, that's what makes a comic really collectible, is first appearances, of stuff, key issue. So every issue, I'm going to try and make to be a key issue. Well, I'm going to do something innovative, but I said, what have I got done? I had the Grave Tales story done. About 85% of this project is done. Like I said, Keith Gleason's got a lot of lettering to do. He did Mighty Mascots over at Alterna now on his own.
Peter Samedi, another friend of ours, actually just got a commission from him shipped.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, he's a great artist. I love him. I would love to, have him do something for me. He's good. He just
I play a trading card game called Magic the Gathering. And
I'm familiar with that.
I play squirrels, so I actually asked him for a Green Lantern squirrel, one where he's getting ready to fight and one where he's been knocked out.
Chip?
Yeah, well, there's 3 of them I think that are squirrels overall,
really?
but I let him have his pick. But I wanted one where the squirrel was ready to fight and one where he was knocked out, because I do an infinite combo where you have tapped and untapped squirrels. So the tapped squirrels would be knocked out, not able to fight, and the untapped one would be ready to go.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's my annual donation to the Alterna cause.
Well,
a couple years ago we did his Halloween Indiegogo, where he offered a bundle of overstock comics that you could give out for trick or treaters.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep. I support their channel financially every month, and I love what they're doing. I've actually got here in town a local comic shop to start supporting alternative books quite heavily, and was actually featured in, they will tell you what state, and you'll see Jonesboro, Arkansas, and some of those back issues. They've since closed, sadly, but and I know he sends out, I've been over in Jackson, Tennessee, where a friend of mine is, and they have had some alternative books, but I know they were just sent as freebies, so to get them interested, and they've been around for over 30 years.
It's always kind of a successful thing when you get an alternative book into a store, for the simple fact that you get a sense of comics don't need to cost $8 on the stand when you're ordering them by the 100.
Right.
They can still cost $2 or $3, and you can still get that quality product. It's just such it's been a topic of conversation multiple times on the show, because you've got so many different variables going into the comics medium right now. So you've got the Marvel DC line, where you're getting up to $7-8 a book sometimes. Then you've got the indie side of it, where to support the cause, you're putting $25-35 down for a book, just the book. And then you've got Alterna out here throwing $3 books around like they're insane.
Yeah, Richard Embry, he's got his book over there on Fund My Comic, $5. He just hit 200 backers. That's amazing. I've got to believe a lot of that's price point. I know, the reason I have a standee on here was just like looking around, like the Black Phantom that came out. They were offering 2 books. I guess that's like 24 pages, so that's probably 48-page book when you get to it. Although it's 2 separate books, you got a standee and a sticker. That's a pretty good deal, so when we were putting this together, Justin that did Chrome Dog, that's over there on Fund My Comic, he's an admin over there, so he can approve, once we were done. He helped me put this all together, because I'm technically challenged. I technically should probably still be on the farm, but I'm the guy that looked around and saw how my family worked on a farm and said, yeah, this isn't for me. I want to do comics.
But don't feel bad. Our co-host Ayrton here streams from a potato.
Hey.
Okay, there you go.
It is a radish. Now I upgraded.
Yeah, I've met a few in my day. Yeah, but he asked me, do you want to do a standee maybe? I was like, yeah, let's go for it. If nothing else, I can contact him and he can tell me where he had his 4-inch standee made, and Doc Blaylock, artist that did the acrylic painting, which is up for sale, Bog, and worked on the Gray Tail story with me back in 2022. Been sitting on a couple of these stories for a couple of years, but after a while, after I got the ash can done, it's like, okay, what do I have that's near complete that I can cobble together? And it finally dawned on me, I need to get the elephant out of the room, because the 28-page Devil Flyer story was eating up so much real estate. As I was adding the stories that I wanted to add and put in it, it was going to grow to like 64 pages. And I want a stitched, stapled, saddle stitched book. I want it to be like this proof for the ash can. This is going to be magazine size. And John Falandes, who did the art on it, on the ash can, which the ash can contained the first 7 pages, kind of ended on a cliffhanger, and then had a pinup section in the back. And he's done a trading card for us that was featured in it, and was the first stretch goal, and we've achieved that. And I just looked at this proof and I said, this is the size the comic book needs, because so that we wouldn't have any printing problems. He inexplicably drew it the size of a comic, a regular comic, which is very small. And during that time, he had an eye surgery on his right eye and an eye surgery on his left eye, and still got the whole project done in a year and a month. And the month was lettering, and doing a cover, this watercolor cover that's on the sort of the golden age.
And
cover.
That's this guy down here, correct? That guy right there.
Yeah. That's he looked at the campaign. He just got a computer. That's how he's 73 years old. He was like 71 when he drew Devil Flyer. I had said, would you do a Devil Flyer after I created him? I was like, and I kind of softened on it. And for 8 months, I pitched him all kinds of other ideas, even him drawing part of it and me drawing part of it. And he just said, no. And then I thought, okay, was sitting and saying, man, I really need to get something out and getting, going on something. And I remembered that he said yes to Devil Flyer, and he said, yeah, I would do that. So I came home, and in the next couple of days, in an 8-hour period, I wrote the Devil Flyer story. And the way I tried to do it like the Stan Lee method. I still kind of work that way. I do storyboards, do thumbnails of the story and the action. I think very cinematically. So I kind of cobbled together this story where he goes up against Chicago Mafia, against the Cy Marco crime family. And you'll be seeing the crime family from the, 30s on up to present day. Some of the history and stuff like that eventually, but it's going to be done in a fun way. My next book is going to tell some of the story of the Momentum universe. This really is not about one character. It's about a whole host of characters. He's basically, it's a redemption story for Devil Flyer. And it's a social commentary also against the woke crowd. But that is all baked in where you don't really see that, it's done in that was the original intent and motivation for it. But, a little bit of pushback on this bad entertainment we're getting, or these remakes that just keep coming out.
Yeah.
So, we decided to do Devil Flyer, and from after I created him, and he got it done in a timely manner. I just felt like, and I've really struggled with that. I don't know why it didn't occur to me sooner to get the elephant out of the room. I was thinking about printing it in 2 other ash cans, breaking it up into 3s. And my chat was like, we just want a story. So it's like, okay. And I wanted to launch it in October, but I think it was good to wait till March. It was tough on me to wait that long, but I think it was the right call. We had a good launch. We funded in the 2,000 mark in 4 days. I think it's been, comparatively in these hard economic times, because I realize this is a luxury item. You don't need comics to feed your family. You don't need comics to get down the, road to fill your car up with gas or truck.
To get to work to feed your family.
But we do need good entertainment and good stories, and that's what we're lacking. If you definitely like a good story that's engrossing, and this is kind of broken up into, it's all the Devil Flyer universe, all the Momentum universe. It's all the Devil Flyer story, like the Inner Man story that John Dillard's drawing, 2-page introduction to Inner Man. He's another character, and that's the philosophical side that you were talking about. He's, I have like different aspects of my personality put into these characters. He's more of the pensive thinker. The Inner Man is. He's kind of like a Iron Fist. I was a Marvel guy myself. I love the Avengers. Got onto the X-Men a couple years into collecting, because frankly, I just didn't see it on the spinner rack. But I was mainly a Marvel guy, but I absolutely followed George Perez over to do New Teen Titans and Justice League and things like that, and John Byrne when he went over to do Superman and stuff. So, you know, I wasn't exclusively Marvel, but I did prefer Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel took a big part of the market share early on just because they were willing to kind of go a mile above where DC was, but
yeah,
I feel like that kind of lost a little bit of its weight somewhere around the 90s, 2000s
right.
with like the death of Superman and things of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, somebody explained it to me or gave me their opinion. They were like saying the DC was like the classic Olympian Parthenon of characters, and Marvel was more the cosmic, more grandiose, epic, you know, episodic type stuff. And I agree.
I mean,
I like that, and that's what I'm trying to infuse in this last story that I'm telling, which is the bystander story.
Marvel, at least back in the day, was also very much about like normal people with normal motivations, while the DC brand seems to be a lot more like their heroes are not just larger than life, but they have larger than life woes and larger than life motivations and larger than life, you know, glories to see. There's nothing wrong with that. But every time someone like Zack Snyder opens his mouth and says, comic books are our modern deities and Greek heroes, I just want to punch him in the face.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is modern mythology, you know, that does have its origins back there.
Telling him he's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, it has its origin. You know, we all need our heroes, right? And
but mythology
and they were pop culture in their day. We don't look at it as pop culture. Well, they were deities and they were worshipped. Yeah, it was you know, it was what was fashionable.
You know, when there's a Church of L, I might give Church his due.
Yeah. Well, now
but nobody's worshiping Superman.
Kal El means everything God, basically. So, you know, he's almost too powerful of a character. Who can go up against him?
That's why they had to give him such an asinine weakness as kryptonite.
Yeah, or magic, which is undefined. Really.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean Wonder Woman's got him with that lasso, eh?
Yeah, I mean, elements of the first story here that's in this first story in the magazine, you will absolutely see in issue 6 once Devil Flyer #1 launches, because I'd call this a prequel, and I got some pushback on that, and it's like I want it to be called a prequel because it's going to be different format, it's going to be a magazine, and who knows, I might keep it as a magazine format. I'm not a big proponent of that. I like the Golden Age size simply because it's so big, and but see, that doesn't fit into people's collections too good. So I would probably go with a little larger.
Well, you gotta up your game if it doesn't fit into your collection, because you know the real collectors, we have Golden Age boxes and magazine boxes.
Well, that's true, but you can't tell that to the normal collector. We're like diehard collectors. I absolutely have some nice Golden Age books. In fact, I've got one right here at my feet if you want to see it. Variety Comics, the Spice of Comics. Each issue contains a variety of new and original features, and this is kind of like encapsulates the Devil Flyer type thing. It's got it says education, jungle adventure, action, mystery, humor. It's got a little bit of it all. You know, it's a Marvin Stein cover, second from 1945, Crichton Publications. Probably never heard of it. But once I saw it on eBay, it's like, yeah, I got to have that just for the, you know, the logo and everything. But it has a superhero in it right there in the center. His second cover appearance and second appearance in comics. Captain Valiant was his name. So, yeah, I absolutely love Golden Age, Atomic Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, Copper Age, which I call the 80s. especially Copper, because it was just a comic book explosion, especially with the black and white independents. But I loved like Pacific Comics, Eclipse Comics, First Comics, what they were doing, and really pushing Marvel and DC to. I believe competition's good, and they've rested on their laurels long enough. The indie scene, I think all the momentum is on with the indies, especially with this crowdfunding, and I think you can absolutely, carve out a little niche for yourself. At this time, are you going to make a big dent? Maybe if the IP takes off.
I mean, Image and Dark Horse say yes, you can, because Image came in and they made just a huge wave with their line.
First time,
and then Dark Horse came in and they were like, "Hey, we got Star Wars. Everybody loves Star Wars."
Well, there was 2 times that really, we talked about this on an earlier stream today. There was 2 times that Roy Thomas came in and really saved Marvel. That was getting the Conan property, and then later Star Wars. And they looked at him like he was crazy when they did Star Wars. But that absolutely, that Marvel was not shipping on time. This is before Shooter came in, Jim Shooter, and they were near bankruptcy, about to file for bankruptcy, and then in came a little comic called Star Wars, and they put that in every format they could. So I'm trying to do the very best of the comics that I grew up on, and also draw from those childhood memories of what excited me and why. And just from a designer standpoint, I considered myself an artist. I've drawn, self-identified, right, as an artist all my life, and then only recently started writing. Now, I think I tell a damn good story. In fact, I'm going to say something that's even blows my mind. I think I'm a better writer than I am an artist, and I've been working hard to become a good sequential artist. Which it's been a daunting task. I mean, making a comic book is not easy, and my way to support sort of like indies is to hire the artist. They need money. I'll gladly give them the money for better comic content and to do my characters. And there are some people out there excited about my characters, and I'm glad of that, because I do not try and be, you might say, okay, there's some Hawkman there. I might see some Spawn there. I might see some, whatever. But I do not try and be derivative, and I really don't dive that deep into comics anymore. I just kind of draw on, because I'm afraid to be overly influenced by anything, but it's definitely, I want it to have a pulp feel, but I want it to be also brought up into the modern excitement. That's why I've created characters like Slaver that are edgy looking. I've got another one called TM. I've got a Matt from Metal Movies and Brewskis that did Butch Cleaver. He's going to be doing a character for me. That's the leader of the Skull Squad, which is, again, that pulp feel for 30s, 40s, 20s. And really, pulp's always been a part of, especially the DC brand, because Julius Schwartz used to write those old pulps back in the 20s and the 30s.
That's going to be RuneKnight's forte there. He and I like to get into some heated debates about Doc Savage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was the first Superman. He was actually called Superman.
He was indeed called Superman. I don't know if it deserved, but he was indeed called Superman.
Right. Well, that was a term that was widely used actually in the 30s. And even by Adolf Hitler, right? We're going to create a Superman. It was just in German. Ubermensch.
Ubermensch, I believe, was the term.
While this has been, leading up to this, I've had like Doc Blaylock try and put strong imagery like the bystander there, kind of in a crucifix mode, right? Without being on the cross, caught in a web. That's an old classic type thing. that I wanted in the Bystander story. The Bystander is kind of like my Watcher character, my cosmic character. I think Jim Starlin really brought a second wave in the Bronze Age to Marvel with their characters. You know, it seemed like he worked on like Adam Warlock and with Thanos and some of the grander, you know, big storylines that were done during that time that really expanded and made the Marvel universe interesting.
Well, that was kind of a back and forth because Thanos and Darkseid were both created,
right?
I mean, basically in the same vein.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
who
one was
it?
inspired
It's
by the
right
other.
on my tongue.
Yeah, and
So
Darkseid inspired
this.
Darth
Jim
Vader.
Jim Starlin and Jack Kirby.
Yeah, Jim Starlin.
But
yeah, I mean, Jim Starlin picked up the gauntlet from Jack Kirby, and
no pun intended, right?
Well, no, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, the Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah. Yeah, and I really liked that it grew. You know, I straight in high school when I was, you know, they made homemade comics, and that's how I met the artist to Devil Flyer at the public library. They had some of the homemade comics that they made. The characters weren't John's. They were, well, I think they had maybe one character that John worked with another friend of ours, Dave Snow, with, and I opened up a comic store in 82 and 83 when the direct market was going in. But now I went to like Chicago Comic-Con and a bunch of conventions with John. So, you know, and we all three went to our first comic book store. They were already going over there together to the Memphis Comics and Records, which are no longer over there. But so, you know, it's just a fun time, and it was more about the creators. And I think the early 80s is when you first heard about like Claremont and John Byrne and Frank Miller and Klaus Janson.
That was the so-called gold, like what I call the golden age of comic books, because that was the Dark Phoenix saga. Yeah. That was what. So I like to tell this story. I used to work part-time at a comic shop that no longer exists, and one of the things that I begrudgingly had to do was we actually gave away and threw out 3 long boxes full of X-Men #1 from the 90s because of the.
Oh yeah, they printed 6 million of those.
Yeah, they printed it into
6 covers.
I like to tell people, like, collectibles became collectibles because of the forbearance of them. You know, you get, there's a reason that Amazing Fantasy 15 is so sought after, and that's because it's the first appearance of Spider-Man, and they might have printed 500,000 of those books. No, they probably printed about 13 million, but probably 500,000 survived.
Yeah,
but you know, and then you get to the 90s, and everybody's like,
what the print run on that was really.
We can look that up here. Let's see. Amazing.
Okay. Well, you know, DC controlled Marvel's distribution. They could only release 8 titles, so DC had a stranglehold on Marvel, which was formally.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because they limited them to only so much. 8 titles. That's why they didn't change the titles very often, right? Like Tales of Suspense went into Captain America, Tales to Astonish into another Hulk, you know.
They probably printed a little over 100,000 or 500,000 copies of Amazing Fantasy.
That's 15. A good run. That's a good run.
But only 2,000 have ever been graded.
Yeah.
So that shows the
the quality is really, of those comic the printing books. Quality, I'm told, on that issue is pretty bad, and maybe Spider-Man #1.
And what did people do with comic books in those days when they were done with them? They threw them away. They folded them up and put them in their back pocket to give.
That's to their why friends. Action Comics is worth so much. There's a little over 100 copies. Of course, you had wartime rationing. I've got a Blue Beetle, and it's got one staple holding together like 64 pages.
Yeah.
because of wartime rationing.
Well,
Yeah.
One staple.
Well, you bring up something really, really interesting that actually didn't come up in conversations we've had on a similar topic previously. We've talked about this idea that we are spoiled for choice in our books right now because there's a million books to buy, but none of them are, except for a couple of really great indies, none of them are really good, or their quality is really subjective depending on what you're getting. Because everyone has personal taste and whatnot. But it's not just that old comics were better because they had to be, right? Because when you have wartime rationing and you can only print so many books because of the limited market, you better make that book real good, right? But because there were less total books to buy, when people bought their books, they actually valued them more because they knew there weren't going to be any others for at least a month, right? And because of the same rationing. That scarcity made those books more valuable for people that actually wanted to keep them. Whereas, as you guys are saying, other people were just like, yep, I read that book, I'm going to give it to my friends now. But at least it got passed around. It saw circulation.
Yep.
Now, people get comics, and, I mean, if you're like me, you read them. Even if you shouldn't, you still read them at least once.
Right.
But I know lots of people who basically buy books to save them on the premise that that speculator market from the 90s is going to come back. This is going to be worth something someday. And it's like, yeah, if you read it and love it, maybe. It's not going to be good because it's still paper right now.
Rune, I'm gonna tell you right now, if you ever get your hands on an Action #1, I'm gonna send you a digital copy. If you open the cover of that thing, I will personally come to wherever you are at that time and beat you up.
Well, now, did you hear the story from just a few years ago where in Action Comics they were doing some inner construction, and tearing a ceiling out or whatever, and out falls an Action Comics #1, and he and his aunt got in a fight over whose it was and damaged it.
Oh,
so
no.
Yeah, there's probably hundreds of thousands gone right there.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah, maybe potentially
for $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what I'm getting at, though. Now it's more of a fight for who possesses the money that represents than the actual love of the book.
Hey, all I know is if I win the lottery, the first thing I'm buying is a copy of Action #1, and I'm going to film myself reading it while eating a bag of Cheetos.
Well,
better be a can of corn.
Snap. Wow. You're going to get death threats. I'm telling you that right now.
It'll be wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Such a hater. Can we kick him?
There is one thing that I like to do when we feature a creator and their crowdfund is to go through the campaign. No. It's to go through the campaign in full, let everybody know what it's about. So we've got the introduction here, and that is a tortured soul comes back to Earth to save it, but can he? A devil's weapon is needed to make a difference for good, or is it? Everything might have its price, but what if the price were too high to pay? What would you die for? Devil Flyer, a devil's weapon, has been a passion project for Rex Christensen, and John Falindes for nearly 2 years to bring you a comic experience like no other. And to hear you talk, this has actually been floating around in your head for a lot longer.
Oh, yeah.
A lone figure who fights his past and as much as his future, Devil Flyer takes flight in a city to stop evil from consuming it. With dire consequences to the victor, whoever it may be, the Marco crime family fights a game of death, winner take all, against our Stark hero. Win or lose, heads will roll. We see the high-flying Devil Flyer embroiled in a conflict that will take him deeper and closer into a darker conflict and the truth about himself and the worlds he protects. If you like heroic drama, adventure, and with interlinking characters, conflicts, and consequences, you will love Devil Flyer. There will be clues to his origin and past, born a man of conflict in 1899, many trials, 2 wars, and much time lost. Devil Flyer burst upon everyday Chicago to save the city he does not yet know. The momentum concept begins with the pages of this book. Justice has a dark name indeed. Expectations. Funds from this project will go towards publishing of this comic as well as help in the printing of other momentum material. The impact of your contribution and support cannot be understated. please feel free to share links with your friends and family, and we will add them to the description of this video after the show. They will be much appreciated, and all received funds will be used wisely. Thank you. And then you've got the pinups here, the metal flyer.
Well, they're not really pinups, and that I need to have Justin change that, because they're actually going to be, I may zoom in on a part of like this armored up villain that's going to, eventually attack Devil Flyer in a future story, or be embroiled with Devil Flyer, right? So this will be cobbled into like the cosmic story of the bystander. So you'll be seeing this art in the magazine. These are not just pinups, and actually it's all story, no pinups. If there's one pinup I might put in, it's John's pinup, but that can always be used as an advertisement. I think I would.
You can also add it as a print for a future project.
Exactly,
a standalone print.
And actually, after this funded, I commissioned these quote pinups. This is Midnight. This is a new character created just last year. My first Western character. Although she's supposed to be a little bit different than this, this is what I got. So from the artist, and I'm fine with it.
I like it. The male gaze seems pretty good here.
Yeah. Well, I knew I need some sex appeal. Some female characters.
Now this, I really like the concept art here. I know nothing about this character, but I'm getting some strong Phantom Stranger vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or the Question, with the hat and and shattered reality type thing. That's John Dillard, and this is Modern Day Mummy.
That's by George Peter Gaddis. I love that guy.
He's the one that did
Blue Furry Monster.
Yeah, he's the one that did Midnight as well.
And then you got the Devil Flyer, and that's the John Dillard cover there.
That's the worst. That's the worst cover I've ever seen.
It is, isn't it? John Dillard, do better.
Yeah,
we've got the watercolor cover here.
Yeah, I might put a 10-cent mark on that thing. The little round 10-cent. Still 10 cents or something on it, in post-production.
The wraparound cover, I'm assuming that just hasn't come in from Jimmy Reyes yet.
Right. That's gonna be dropping in the next couple of weeks, hopefully before the campaign ends and goes in demand. Then we have an artist edition, which is the black and white with the color logo. And I would like to earn enough on this campaign to do a clear acetate and do the old Marvel, and John Dillard's already started it, the framing. Remember the Marvel 25th anniversary issue?
Yeah.
Yeah. And these would all be momentum characters. And then we could do a clear acetate dust jacket for it with this art, but then with the characters around the edge.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've got the interior art samples we looked at earlier. That's the first few pages
Marco
here
with the eye patch. That's the main protagonist against Devil Flyer in this story. Him and his crime family, mafioso in Chicago. Had to place the story somewhere.
I mean,
because
it's either that or Detroit, right?
Chicago's known for its mobsters, especially back in the day, right?
Oh yeah.
This is a double page spread that kind of alludes to his origin. The other 2-page spread is page 2 and 3, him kind of overlooking the city. It's got a quote by Thomas Paine, one of the founders of the United States. These are the times that try men's souls. And that's kind of what
there's another one that floats around on Twitter from time to time that say good times make soft men make hard times make good men. Yeah. And good men make good, or strong men, and strong men make good times. It's a talk of how cyclical our generations are.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the cover for Grave Tales here, and then
looks like we have title sheet. But that's the title sheet. Yeah, that's like the bystander right there. It's drawn by Doc Blaylock. He did this story back in 2022. I've just been sitting on it along with the Devil Flyer story that was done in 2022. Yeah, there's the bog.
Some headshots and concept art here.
Right. Yeah. We got Bystander. I wanted some strong imagery there, and there's Slaver crouching. He was a character that I just wanted to kind of go full metal with to show that it wasn't all going to be just capes. And, you'll see very few capes in my universe.
Okay.
The serial killing clown there, and an unidentified vampire, which will be in a sub story, which will be everybody will love who he turns out to be. There's the 6 a.m. sticker.
I love that guy's style. His style is just so iconic. Like as soon as you see something of his,
I'm definitely going to commission him for another sticker. He's already agreed to do it. It's based on a Tank Ferret image that's going to be on the back of most of these comics. There's first
Zigzag.
John Flanders, yeah, and there's sort of my mascot, Zigzag, my speedster. Going to make that into a magnet done by Rob Ewing. I'll be using Rob a lot. This is going to be the content page. I used it here for the credit page, but this is drawn by John Dillard. I told him, I want an old typewriter hutch with a drink, bottle, stuff, and this is what he came up with. That's going to be the content page.
I just love his artwork so much. I've got a little bit of his original artwork.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, RJ from Critical Blast will be fulfilling this. He's about 4 hours away from me in Eureka Springs. So I thought I'd give him on this first magazine, I'd give him a shot at it,
This is a phenomenal logo, by the way.
John Flanders designed that.
Ayrton and Rune know this, but we don't talk about it very often. This is the world that I come from is logo design and graphic design.
We never talk about it.
Oh, okay.
And again, the simplicity, but the complexity, the use of negative space to create the letters, the bomb, the little bit of white highlight. Again, the only thing that I might criticize here is instead of having 2 lines, I might just make it 1 line stretching from the furthest point all the way across. Other than that, I mean, this is just classic comics logo type, and I love it. And then you've got your social medias there. So everybody, this link will also be in the description after the show goes up. Probably look for that first thing in the morning, and we'll go through the backer rewards or tiers as they will. So we've got the big book bundle, which is all 3 comics, the acrylic standee, the tapestry. That's $300. We've got
and the artist edition, which has additional material, sort of behind the scenes things that were cut out of the story or just how John worked. It'll at least be 12 pages added to that, if not more. And the digital copy will have that as well.
All right. And then we've got the all 3 covers edition, which will be the wraparound cover, the John Dillard cover, and the watercolor cover.
Yeah.
We've got the 3 covers individually, $25 a piece. We got the blank variant cover for $20.
That's the one I'm excited about because I can draw my characters on those and sell those on the next campaign, overprint. I generally overprint about 25% anyway. And just for damages, any replacements, which there were none, but you never know. The printer might damage some books or something.
Right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be concerned about the postal service and the shipping.
Oh yes.
The fulfillment shipping. People like to kick boxes and whatnot.
Well, like Jason Bascom and Shelby Robertson and Dan Pleagle, they all like to draw on those blank covers. And I said, yeah, man, I want to create one of those. Yeah, there's the love of my life there.
You got the $15 digital version for those that want to read it on their iPad. I actually, the last time I purchased an iPad, I purchased the largest version they had so that I could turn it sideways and read comic books on a reader the way they were meant to be read.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Then you've got the just donate, which will buy Abby a dog meal. I'm sure she would definitely appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the blacklight tapestry.
Over 11 years. She's been the great companion to me because I'm a single guy and, couldn't make it through the day without her. She's wonderful. And she hops up in my lap during the broadcast, so everybody knows Abby that watches the show.
Now you've got 2 drawn-in characters claimed so far. 6 are left out of the 8.
Right. I wanted to put 20 because I've got a great concept for this. It's going to be like a double page spread in the bystander story where you can get. I know we used an image from the Devil Flyer story for this, but it will be in the bystander story. There will always be the major Devil Flyer story, and there'll be another character that gets a little bit more airtime in their short story, and that in this issue, Cross will be bystander. And then next issue, it'll be Inner Man because I've got a big story written for him. He just kind of gets introduced in this magazine. But now there is in the dialogue a linkage to Devil Flyer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the original art for the tapestry, which is
that's an acrylic painter. He's an accomplished gallery sold artist. That's what he did before the pandemic. Bottom fell out, so he, my benefit, he started doing comics again.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got to make a living. I was lucky enough to keep my job through there, if you call that.
I did too.
A lot of my coworkers got 2 weeks off and more money than they made on their paychecks. But I'm not bitter.
yeah. Oh, I could have absolutely took the money and ran and made a lot more than if I'd worked through it. 1 week's paycheck would have been about 2 weeks work for me.
I am a super jerk because I both worked throughout the pandemic because I was also working as a caregiver for my mother. We all miss Mama Rune. And I got those fat stimulus checks.
Oh yeah.
And I sold my old house. So I was living quite well during the pandemic.
You were flush with cash.
Still sucked, and I still ended up in my current state. Both my parents passed on, and while I have inherited a house, I've inherited all the struggles that come with home ownership.
Oh,
Yay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you've got various pieces of individual art. It looks like full page spreads on A4, probably Bristol board.
I want to mention I really do like the webbed up picture there. That is both obvious implied iconography, and it's a very classic like Spider-Man in peril style cover.
Right.
Which is what you were saying you were aiming for. So I'm like, yes, these are the things I grew up with. I'm down.
Yeah, I wanted to put up some strong imagery, so I give my artist direction, on all of this, and I'm writing all the stories. I'm kind of like J. Michael Straczynski writing Babylon 5. He wrote 1,000,000 years into the future, 1,000,000 years into the past, so he knew what the middle of the story was going to be. I'm a very hands-on creator. I don't micromanage, but I know what I want. And this is some of my original artwork. We've got parchment sketch cards available, and those are in hard cases, collector hard cases. That's the way it'll be sent, since the parchment is thinner paper. And I've also, because I've been working on this for a couple years, some of this is going to be older artwork that I've done on this show. And I also go on topic lists with and draw on Tuesdays with Jason Bass and all that, and Luke over there. And I did bookmarks for a while. So these are some hand done bookmarks, and these are backing board, comic book backing board, just cut to size.
Okay.
They're various sizes.
So we've got several ways to support the crowdfund here. By all means, check out Devil Flyer on Fund My Comic. It is campaign 60 Devil Flyer or Devil-Flyer-Weapon. You can check that out. You can back it in a myriad of ways. You can also just contribute with a minimum of $1. You can share the campaign. Every little bit helps, I am told.
Absolutely. And if you just go in and tip Fund My Comic, and that helps. That helps get me up on the front page. In fact, I was backer 48 recently. I backed my own campaign. I wouldn't have put any money to the campaign. I just wanted to contribute to Fund My Comic for putting me on the platform. And then that also helps trend me and keep me on the front page. So where we're at now, I contributed $3 to that. They required a minimum, and it counted me as a backer, a minimum of $1.
So you're currently sitting at $2,769. Another $31 will push you over the 3,000 mark. And in order to unlock the next stretch goal, it looks like you need, what is it, 3,500? No, 3,050. So that is $81 to unlock the zigzag magnet. And
are we that close? $81?
$81 to unlock the zigzag magnet.
Awesome. And then our next stretch goal is going to be the midnight trading card. That artwork from George.
If my financial situation were more free, I would absolutely jump on that on show because I'm that kind of ridiculous person. But I cannot. So I'm gonna look at Church and be like, Papa Church, you've got $81 for a sticker, don't you?
I have 3 children, Rune. So we're gonna have to see what it looks like after I pay my credit card next week.
I mean, can't you just put those children to work? I mean, the Girl Scouts do it every year. They got a racket.
I actually did that math. The Girl Scout. This is a brief aside, but do you know how much money Girl Scout cookies makes in profit every year?
I do not, but it's got to be a
no. But I would love to know.
$800 million.
Oh, wow.
See what I'm talking about, man?
Yeah,
in profit.
Well, they need to stay away from the woke agenda, and they would probably do better.
Here's the math that I did. At any given time, there are approximately 107 million Girl Scouts active. And I thought $800 million, that's got to cover everything. Why are they taking money from anybody at all? I mean, the cookie sales from last year covers the next year. That's less than $500 a Girl Scout.
Yeah, I don't want anybody taking maybe their cookie money, but no, not the rent money, gas money, whatever. Absolutely, things like this are a luxury, but you have to be a good steward of your money. Absolutely.
Well,
in everything you do,
I could definitely tell you the people that you have surrounded yourself with, Rick Piper, John Dillard, they foster an amazing community. Edwin. Everybody in the indie comics movement that does not seem caught up in the latest drama tends to be a great person and foster a great community.
Yeah, that's not going to make great comics, the drama. In fact, it's actually, I think, steering people away from the crowdfunding.
We try our best to avoid naming names. We do laugh occasionally at certain situations,
right.
But for the most part, I'm not going to sit here and call out any particular creator. However, I will say that Cross Comics and John Dillard and Edwin and all of those people typically do their best to provide a great quality product on time and stay away from things that don't matter, which is
Absolutely.
Not entertaining the people.
If Marvel or DC, they would do a lot worse than to hire John Dillard. He's a great artist, and I plan to use him more. As the funds make themselves available. I'm not worried about. I've already done one campaign over on Indiegogo. Howbeit a smaller campaign, I think it was a successful campaign, over $1,300 for a little ash can, and when we launched this thing over on Red Valkyrie, she cosplayed the character Devil Flyer, and we made over $800 in less than an hour. I've never done that in my lifetime, working my tail off. And we funded $2,000 in 4 days. So I think people are excited about receiving this. They've read part of the story already in the ash can. I think we've got some new people that have absolutely found out about the channel and what I'm trying to do. And I think, guys, if we want good entertainment, we're gonna have to make it for ourselves, and we're gonna have to support those that do, that want to
Absolutely
give us good entertainment.
Well, we've gone volumes talking about how Marvel and DC have just completely abandoned what made them as big of entities as they are. I remember when Marvel looked at modern society standards and the Comics Code Authority and just kind of flipped them all the bird and said, "We're going to do this issue about Harry Osborn being on drugs and Spider-Man saving him because you said we can't, and people need to know that these things are bad and to avoid them, and that's what we care about, and that's who we are." And it seems to have kind of gone out the window. I like to say that right around 2015, with the last Secret Wars that Marvel put out, that was the last bastion of good comic books that came out of the big two.
But even around that time, they reconfigured their covers and stuff where they had all that information at the bottom. That was just bad design. That really didn't capture me at all, But it got a lot worse after that, I must say.
If you go back in our history for the last 5 years, there's rarely a show like you can pretty much put it as the free spot on your bingo card that I'm going to bring up Secret Wars in one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But luckily, we don't bring up Alan Moore nearly as frequently as we used to.
I know, thank God.
Yeah. Alluding to past. Well,
Ayrton can only get so erect so often.
I just, I've tried to, I can't back every project that's out there, although I've backed, quite a few of the projects. Some projects I've backed simply because I know the people. I think it's, if you get to know the person, they're not so much investing in the project, but they're investing in you as a person. And I like that aspect of it. I've sold on eBay for about 20 years, and I've had that hands-on. I could absolutely fulfill this myself, but I am working close with Critical Blast and George on this project, and we'll see how that works out. They seem to have pretty good track record.
I do like that we're coming closer. See, what my initial thoughts of what Comicsgate and the indie crowdfunding scene was going to be is I thought we would see a crowdfund evolution into a new Image Comics type, conglomeration of people. If not a company, if not, but a close-knit network of people where certain creators step up and say, hey, I've got the excess funds. I've had the most successful campaigns, and rising tides raise all ships. So I'm going to step up and handle fulfillment for some of these smaller creators. I'm going to step up and handle printing for some of these smaller creators. And we're starting to see that finally. I thought it would be a lot sooner from a lot more notable names. Again, we have a guest on, so we won't call anybody out in particularly. But some of these campaigns that have grossed $500,000, $1 million to $3 million more than covered the infrastructure building of a comics company. And yet those funds were squandered and, pocketed as opposed to reinvested into the community like people expected them to be. I understand that we are in a position to where a $20 to $35 comic book is the only sustainable model for smaller creators. But instead of some of those larger figurehead creators coming together and doing this, you're starting to see that from your Critical Blast, from your Edwins, from your John Dillards. You're seeing a networking, you're seeing a growth of these creators who truly care about the medium, actually putting in the work on a much smaller budget than what some of these figureheads have come in and made,
Right.
just based on their internet celebrity.
Well, I'm a Christian, so I kind of go by the Christian principles as you count the cost. But when it comes to this comic, it's like, yeah, I've counted the cost ever along the way, but also I couldn't tell you a final figure of how much I've invested in this, because I've invested, um, you know, into other artists, and I feel like I would rather, and put money in the hands of artists that need it. And often they make projects themselves. That's the trick, getting to know the person, and them shunting enough time to work on your stuff and putting their own on the back burner. That's what Doc did with Pariah Blood and Mud. He took 2 months off to draw that Grave Tale story. And I mean, he even fell asleep at the art desk at one point, working late into the night on that stuff. So I think that's my favorite story out of all of it. Short story that's really more about the protagonist than it is about the hero. Good character development. I think we use some spot coloring on that one, kind of like Schindler's List with the little girl's shoes, to kind of twelve through all the story. It's really the story about the serial killing clown. I think it almost has to be with such an intense story like that. And Doc kind of goes grittier, with his stories and things. And we got to talking about a possible story, and he's like, "Do you have any serial killing?" And I said, "Yeah, I got one. It's a clown." And I sit down and thumbnailed it out again. And when we had an artist bundle up there, we may put it back up there. I don't know, where you could actually get get some of the behind the scenes shots and stuff like that, the thumbnail storyboards that I do. And then all that John gave me a big thick thing of, I had things like off camera violence. This is really for, I would say, 8-9-year-old up, maybe not for young children, but a young child would probably be okay for them as well. They might not understand it.
That's something that I think everyone on the panel here can agree with, is that we've gotten away from comic books being a medium that sustains itself by always enrapturing a new crop of customer in young children. Because yes, while I was an adolescent and 6, 7, 8 years old, my dad was going to the store and he was buying the first run of Spawn. He was buying the, X-Force, where people got shot and killed in the X-Men colors. But there was also Saturday morning cartoons with, X-Men and Spider-Man. There were also really all ages.
My love of heroes started was cartoons back in the 60s. Herculoids, Space Ghost, Hercules, all those early, late 50s to 60s, who really was the golden age. And then, politics got involved through Ted Kennedy, and they thought this is too violent for kids, and they passed it. And we didn't see any blood droplets or anything till the early 90s. After that, it was all Super Friends.
Even in the early 90s, I mean, even in the early 90s, you had the Batman, the animated series was becoming pretty popular. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were just finding their foothold in the cartoon world. And I mean, let's really step back and look at it. Anybody that's read the first 4 issues of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they killed people. Shredder was killed in issue 1. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
40-year-old spoiler alert.
And when I go back and look at that artwork, I think Underground, like Zap Comics or Furry Freak Brothers or Robert Crumb, I really do.
Then you look back at the Turtles specifically, and you see the older gentleman who was involved in creating the Ninja Turtles has kind of faded into obscurity, and the younger gentleman has succumbed to the woes of our society.
You know, if I had one criticism to the crowdfunding thing, and I don't know after the recent drama, if I think maybe time heals all wounds. Maybe we'll knit together. I think that is cliquish. You know, you got this click over there and that click over, and we really do need to kind of come together if we want this to be something bigger. It would be my one criticism is most of them are square bound. I like the stitch. I like the accessibility of you being able to enjoy the whole thing, and that's why I felt like this
Without
needed to
creasing the
be.
freaking cover.
I felt like I needed a big format for this first story.
Yeah.
So,
Well, one of my biggest criticisms is the incentive to release essentially a trade size book and opposed to individual issues. I like individual issues. I like thumbing through the box. I like thumbing through the box and finding a book I haven't read in 15 years and being like, you know what, I'm going to check this out again. And then going back and finding online copies of the issues I'm missing of that run to follow the whole story thread.
The other thing that Church said that dovetails with his comments earlier and with yours now about the coming together of the sphere is we can say, and Church and I have argued at great length, Ayrton and I have argued at great length about how a rising tide raises all ships, which is nominally true, but how creators are also competing for market space because there's the great debate that you can only get so many dollars, right?
Well, now the joke was that we, with blood hunting and all that, is that there was $100,000 out there and it was being circulated between creators, right?
Right. The thing is that what I think is a root cause of this problem is the perception that in order to succeed, someone else must fail, right? Like it can't be almost a gentleman's game where, well, sometimes I get the market share and sometimes you get the market share, and it really depends on who's into what. And maybe there's room for both of us because we're going to get some of the money, but not all of the money. And then you add ego into it and you have people competing for, well, who made this indie scene? It's like, who gives a crap? I don't care who's responsible for it. I care about, are the books good? Are they inexpensive? Are they getting to the consumer? That's what matters, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no industry.
And so, the lightness, I think you really are. We haven't mentioned that, but the lightness of projects, and I think some of the smaller creators that don't have the big budget, they won't launch unless it's 100% done. I wanted this to be 100% done, but it's 85% there, so we should have a quick turnaround on this. And then we'll see after that. It's like I put all my eggs into this basket here, and to also develop other things along the way, that are going to follow this up.
Well, I mention it because that cliquishness that you speak of, I think it comes from this idea that like the only people hang out with are people that can help you get ahead, right? Or only the people that agree with you. And the thing is that is the same kind of behaviors that got the mainstream industry where it is today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We need to not kill the ego, but we need to be sober about your ego doesn't have a place right now. What's important is the health of the industry, the health of your book, the health of other people's books. Because indie books succeeding, even if it's not your book, is good for the indie sphere trying to prove it can deliver on time and make a quality product.
That's what we do on the 4 o'clock shadow every day. We promote. We have other guests on, from big names, from Dan Lawless to Michael Barron to, you name it, Gary Shipman. I mean, but we have smaller creators on too, that are, you would never hear about, that have small channels. And I don't discriminate. It's like, man, if you've got a comic, we'll promote it here. It doesn't cost me anything to help, to have an interesting interview, just like what you guys are doing with me now. and get to know each other. And then just, I drop links to people and they're going, what's this? And it's like, oh, I thought you might want to come on. We had Mike Barron on, and meet Mike Barron, whatever. I mean, not everybody can do that. And I wouldn't trust to send a link to certain people to be on with Mike Barron. But I'm just saying, and you want to give Mike fair play too when he's on. But I'm just saying, I like people just to drop in and hang out, and have interesting conversations about not necessarily even their projects, but comics in general. Like we talked a little bit about now, what got you, I'm interested in what got you started in comics. What's your history in comics? How did you arrive at this point of reading comics? Comics made me a reader. I needed that visual stimulus, and it also gave me concepts and ideals that I wouldn't otherwise have. I have stymied them with my brilliance.
Well, I kind of am in the same spot. Comics didn't necessarily get me reading, but it got me interested in world building and longer works. I used to be a big fan of like one and done fiction, where it was, I can pick up, and I still am to a certain degree. Like there's always going to be something great about those Golden Age Superboy books where you pick one up and the Lex Luthor has built a robot that's fueled by hate tapes, and that's the story.
Yeah.
But I got into these longer runs in some of these events, and I know that's kind of a hot take in the current comics market, where everything is we're just jumping from event to event to event, and it gets kind of exhausting.
Comics. I think that's hard comics. It's hard to follow.
At the same time, you occasionally come across something like a Kingdom Come or an Earth X, or just.
That's fine. A little side story, or Elseworld, or What If. When What If first came out with that first issue, I said, "What's this?"
Careful, Ayrton might hunt you down and marry you if you keep talking the way you're talking.
Well, there are two things going on. The first
he's a big fan of the What Ifs and the Elseworlds. Probably
I am too. But at first, when I saw that first What If, I took I want a universe, the momentum universe. I want people to take it seriously. I don't want to know Howard the Duck or Doctor Who breaking the fourth wall. Because I took what I read very seriously, maybe too seriously. Don't ask me why, but I didn't like that's one reason I didn't buy a lot of Micronauts, because it was a toy line or ROM. I did buy some ROM. Absolutely, and started reading it for a long time, but it was some of the later issues, and Michael Golden's, I think my first one was like issue 17, and that was because I liked when the more serious, Fantastic Four or Avengers or something would cross over. That's what piqued my interest. Or Godzilla. Oh, the Avengers are in Godzilla. Well, I've got to get that, Well,
it's because there were two things going on. The first is, what ifs are great as what ifs, which is what you're saying. They're good as standalones. One of the problems the industry has right now, like at DC, is they keep trying to take their best what if stories that really should just be what ifs and fold them into the main continuity and make them the official canon. And it's like, that's stupid, right? Dark Knight Returns is a hypothetical future of Batman by Frank Miller. It was a what if or an Elseworld. It's not supposed to be the actual canon of Batman,
right?
Whatever that is. The other thing is that Church mentioned Dark Phoenix, the big crossovers, Secret Wars. All of those things are great, but all of those things were great because they were unusual and because they were both new and rare, right? The big crossovers aren't supposed to happen all the time. Little crossovers make sense though. Marvel used to have a book that was just like two heroes running into each other on the regular.
Marvel team up and Marvel 2 in 1, and DC had the same thing with like Brave the Bold,
and those would resolve in an issue. You didn't need a massive overlap.
Right.
Now it's annual, twice to 4 times a year office events. And they're so complicated because they want you to buy more books. And there's nothing wrong with buying more books, But if I have to buy 8 different Spider books to get one Spider story where Spider-Man is only a bit player because it's actually a stealth Fantastic Four Avengers story, I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
want it.
You're fleecing your readership at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And for a subpar product often, which is the real problem.
Yes.
Because if it was
They're,
actually
they're kind of wanting you to go over there and go, oh, here's nobody's reading Alpha Flight at this time, but if we do a crossover, maybe they'll go over there, they'll like it and start reading it, and readership will go up on it. It doesn't work that way, folks.
And the irony is that this is the 3rd or 4th time they've had to learn this lesson because they forget it. What would you guys say collectively? Like roughly every 20 to 30 years they forget, right?
Well, team up books have a place.
No, not team up books specifically, but like in the late 70s, comics suffered a downturn, right? So they opened up their style. They said, we're going to get rid of this comics guy. We're going to start doing more extreme stuff. So they saw an uptick.
DC, I think, handled it pretty well in the 70s by just introducing a new age of scientific.
Right. Hey, Commander.
But then in the 90s, a downturn started again, right? So they kept, and that was during the bankruptcy and the crash, right? Mm-hmm. So they started pushing new types of stories again, which did work to get some eyes back on them.
Yeah, and I felt like that I grew with the hobby, that I was getting older. I was out of childhood, and it was getting more sophisticated as I went along. I like that.
And now here we are, 2020s, right? About 30 years from the last big downturn, and they're having it again. They're losing money, they're losing readership, but this time, instead of going, well, let's change what we're doing to maybe appeal to a wider, better audience, they're instead looking at
the reader saying, that's wrong.
Yeah, no, it is the children who are wrong.
bad reader, bad.
Right. How dare you not buy the slop we give you and be grateful for it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you have the pride flag or an Asian issue, and on not just a one shot like the Asian thing, but when you have Pride Month and it's on every,
well, that's the thing. Even if they had in a book somewhere, right? Guy is swinging by doing his hero thing, and somebody has a pride flag in a window, I wouldn't care. It wouldn't matter.
Right, but you're not hitting it. Doesn't become the main thing that you're hitting people,
right?
Or you're taking people out of character, like the one that you mentioned, Lord Church, was Alan Scott. He's not homosexual. They've not set up that story yet. They've made him homosexual.
Well,
and this was a patriotic hero from the 40s that fought Nazism for freedom. You could call that American propaganda at the time. Call it what you will. It was called patriotism.
Well, Church also mentioned. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh, I was just going to say love of country.
Right. Well, Church also mentioned the issue of Spider-Man, where Peter Parker / Spider-Man helps Harry Osborn with his drug addiction.
Yeah.
And how profound that issue was. One of my problems with more recent books, specifically the One More Day arc, that the vociferously hated arc that everyone talks about constantly, where they destroy the Spider-Man marriage with a deal with the devil, right? Is not because they did away with Peter Parker's marriage. That is ephemeral to me, right? But that they missed a great opportunity in storytelling to have MJ and Peter, for whatever reasons, right, grow as people and grow apart, right? Or they have a big fight that leads to not just a separation, but an actual divorce, and then deal with the ramifications of divorce, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, Spider-Man used to have stories where it's like, I've got to pay bills and be a hero. I've got to be at school and be a hero. He doesn't do that anymore. It would be classic. It would work so well if it's like, I've got to get to the courthouse. My wife is trying to get alimony out of me, right?
Yeah.
And I've got to go be a superhero. And then, and when people
I had a catalog because I worked at a Christian bookstore. I've done prison ministry, for like 7 years. I went into the prisons, and also worked with the homeless at homeless shelter at the same time. In fact, that was my day job, working at homeless shelter, 3 different homeless shelters at, over a period of time. And you get to see a great cross section of people, when you visit a homeless shelter, not just the dirty old grimy, guy that has given up on society, but like couples that, our house burnt down and we had nowhere to go because we had no relatives around here. We had to temporarily stay here, so you get to help a great cross section of people, or people that have maybe had domestic violence and they had to get out and, with the kids. And so, I feel like, and that's been the only couple years that I didn't read comics, actually, like 1999, 2000, when I was working with the homeless, because I was living it. I was living that. Oh, I can't pay Aunt May's rent. I got to come up with the money somehow. I was really learning about people and their day-to-day struggles. I really think not Christ on the cross, but Christ carrying the cross is for me anyway, is because most people can identify with toil, work, struggling to get down the street with that beam on your back all the time, whether that be a mortgage, financial problems, or what.
Well, that's the other component of that story that I think is just a missed opportunity. Is comics are always talking about, and they're always getting lambasted by parents groups and whatnot for not giving lessons and not telling stories and not giving inspirational material to children. The children gotta be helped, right? Mm-hmm. If you did a story about Spider-Man or any other hero, frankly, going through a divorce, actually focused on how much divorce sucks, right? And then had them still succeed at being a hero as an inspirational figure, right?
Right.
Then the kid reading that, the target audience, the 15-year-old to 19-year-old kid who maybe they grew up with a rough childhood or they're having a rough time as a teenager or whatnot, could read that and go, yeah, things suck, but I could be a hero like Spider-Man, which has always been the goal.
Yeah. Right? I mean, that was Claremont. I mean, the Dark Phoenix saga, I cried when she died. In 137, I cried, and I've talked to other collectors that read it back, and I was like 14. I wasn't just some young kid. I was 14 when I read that, and I cried. That is the power of a good storytelling. But it took years of development and reading issue month after month after month to lead me to be invested in those characters to where I cared for them.
And that's the thing.
If you can cry when a fictional character dies, nobody's died, folks. It's a fictional character. But you invest a little bit of yourself in those characters, and you do feel the loss if it's well written and well drawn. And I thought comics were, as rarely hit that pinnacle as they did in that time period where you had Claremont, John Byrne, and Terry Austin. It was awesome.
I have a direct comparison because you mentioned Claremont. There's an X-Men book of more recent X-Men from a couple of years ago where they discover that a villain's super evil plan is the ultimate scheme of what's basically a really, really disabled Morlock. He's like in a wheelchair and on life support and he's gross. And he villain monologues about why he's done what he's done, which basically is he got the genetic lottery and lost. He got all the worst powers and all the terrible negatives of mutancy, right? And then you have the X-Men, and what's it made up of? It's got the White Queen looking like, the White Queen. It's got Cyclops. It's got Wolverine. It's got Jubilee or Shadowcat. There's all these super beautiful superhero people who live in upstate New York, right? And the White Queen's like, okay, so we're going to kill you now? Just no attempts at empathy, no attempts at understanding, no attempts at saying, we understand you've had a horrible life, but that doesn't excuse the horrible things you've done, and justice has to be done, right? No heroism in my heroes. They're just cold-blooded murderers because you did a bad, so you die now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
Hi,
love
Belmont.
Dr. Doom. I love Dr. Doom trying to
I love
save
Dr.
his
Doom.
mother's soul from hell. The early
Doom
stories.
is the best hero.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It
if
is-
you don't have a great
Could
villain,
have just stopped at best.
yeah, if you don't have a great rogues gallery, your heroes aren't going to be as interesting. Kind of like we touched upon with Superman. Superman's almost too powerful. How do you go up against Superman and make it
Church is
interesting?
as a proper Lightvarian church, we are not allowed to refer to Doom as anything other than a hero. How dare you?
Well, the greatest creators of comics loved comics. They're fans of comics. Speaking of Doctor Doom, that was John Byrne's Fantastic Four #5, the first appearance of Doctor Doom, inked by inked by Joe Staton, the only early issue he inked. The Thing becomes Blackbeard, goes back in time. I mean, just classic story with a great inker. A lot of the Avengers issues, early Avengers issues, Jack Kirby's, he was rushing through doing many books, right? But he suffered from bad inkers often that didn't do his stuff justice. And he's not the only one. Same thing over on Fantastic Four. It's kind of up and down, from issue to issue sometimes. But now that one was firing on all cylinders. That made a young Canadian kid, John Byrne, a fan of comics. And then he did X-Men, he did Iron Fist, he did, all these others. But what he was really Avengers, but what he was waiting to do was Fantastic Four, I believe, not that he didn't put his own take on that, but Fantastic Four was his jam. And that's what he couldn't wait to write. Superman was another, which he later did, but I do believe that the best comic book creators, writers, artists are comic book fans themselves. And I've been collecting comics books for most of my life. So, and that's, I major in comicology. That's what I'm good at. That's what I like to do. So I'm glad that I can offer up something back to such a great hobby. And already I've got some backers that say, I've never backed a comic before, but I want to read your comic. I'm honored. I mean, I'm like, wow, but that's what it's all about. The first experience that gets you hooked. And I'm have to make everybody an addict, a responsible addict of comics,
I mean, isn't that what we say around here, Church? And don't we often come to the point when some talking head opens their mouth and says something stupid about the books that they're working on, that they come at it like they're too good for comics?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like this is only their stepping stone to making a TV show or a movie somewhere else.
It's kind of the studio transition. You had like Carl Malden and other actors. They were Keith, what's his name, that did A Family Affair. Anyway, they did movies. They were movie stars. But that dried up over time, and they had to do TV, and they were successful at it. But they had to pivot. At one time, TV was a bastard child to the movies. It just was. When it came to acting.
Either that or you went the reverse route. You started on TV and became a movie star, kind of like Robin Williams.
Well, later on, yeah. But back in the heyday, it was all about, being a movie star. But that changed, especially starting in the 60s and going into the 70s. That's why Carl Malden and others had to do streets of San Francisco and stop doing movies, or like the Raymond Burr that did Perry Mason, even in the 50s. I mean, he started in the movies, but there's only so much movie work out there, and I grew up. I was, albeit very small. I remember the transition from black and white to color, and even after they said, this is in color, The Fugitive in color, The Invaders in color, we had a black and white set. But some of my memories of some shows are in black and white, yet they were filmed in color. And when I see them later, I'm like, even cartoons, you know. But it's a great time, man. Great time to be alive. I think I kind of getting that 80s Copper Age vibe again, you know, where we had the big comic book explosion before really the engine blew up after the Image and just the speculators and all like that, you know. And I like that period of time of comics. There was some that's when digital coloring came in, and where you had like out of focus and lens flare, you know, added to comics, and the stuff that Marvel and DC wasn't doing at the time. And I'm like, yeah, finally, you know, after almost the second wave, right? Because at first you had Pacific Comics, Eclipse Comics, eating away at their, you know, and pushing them to do better things. I don't. Yeah, that's arguable if they did, you know. One thing, you know, we've already talked about is this infinite, you know, we got to have a yearly event that's so big that nobody can follow.
Well, it's almost to the point now where it's just like, oh, well, it's got to be constant, not just yearly. Like we have to go from one event to the next. We have to overlap events. We have to have these characters crossing over in events.
You know, if it's an issue or two, like we talked about the team up books, like one of my probably my first crossover was Spider-Man team up and the Thing Marvel 2-in-1, and it was just a simple start the story and end the story, you know, and that you could track. You know, I read the one, liked it. The next month, another issue came out, different title, but the conclusion of the story. I didn't even know that it was that they were soap opera, you know, like the continual stories. I know at the end it said next issue, but that never clicked it with me at first. It was just by chance that I picked up. I liked what I liked, and I picked up Avengers 147, 148. Got out to the truck, got to looking in it and go, oh, this is a continuation of the one I bought 2 weeks ago. I'm going to collect this from now on. I thought it was the best thing, you know, we could get every month. I didn't know that. I kind of treated them as one and dones, even though it might have said next issue at the end. It never clicked with me. I guess I was dense in that way. But you know, and you know, it took a great artist like George Perez. I mean, Jack Kirby, I appreciate, especially now, Steve Ditko and others that came before, absolutely. And Kirby, you know, I love some of those covers that he did on Avengers, but I wanted George Perez to do the covers too. That's how much I liked his stuff, you know. It's
right.
You know, it just drew me. I like those big group settings, you know. And I've never been one of those artists that wants to draw Batman, Spider-Man, other people's creations. If I'm going to put that much energy into it, I want to draw my own creations, and I do want to come up with the better character. And I think I've done that without being overly derivative or tropish with my characters, because I've been at it a while, you know. I start generally the way I design a character is I start the head, and then if I get a nice head that I like character, then I'll extrapolate a costume and go from there, and then powers and name. One exception to that I can think of in the last few years has been Silver Boa. I was listening to the radio, and he's kind of like a retro type, you know, Flash Gordon type character. Not really the sci-fi element, but he's got the flared out pants, you know. But there's a reason for that, because he's kind of like a constrictor type thing, right? A Silver Boa constrictor. Right. And little retro, you know, with guns, pew 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 pew, you know, some 1911s, and he looks like the Shocker, really, because he's got all that silver scaling and stuff on him. And I design all my characters, and so, you know, I give the artist, you know, reference and stuff to do their characters with, or talk it through with them, whatever. And I just do, like, you know, stuff like that. And then we go from there. But you know, generally I can extrapolate from just a head. But now with that, I heard on the radio that on Conception Island, and I didn't even know where that is. It's somewhere in the Bahamas. It's a small island, Conception Island. What a great name! It was in 2017. So he was created in 2017. They said a silver boa constrictor's been found. A new breed that they didn't. How do you not know that's on the island for hundreds of years? I don't get it, but it was, and I said silver boa or a silver boa constrictor, a silver boa. I got to use that as a name, so I created a character with that name in mind, and actually a secondary character, an ancestor with a more even retro costume for the 30s and 40s. And my next book will have a story where I introduce you to that character, and the title of it is the Death of Silver Boa. I'm introducing the character at the end of his career in 1959 with his death story.
That's a very pulp move, sir.
Well, we're hard hitting at Momentum. We know what good entertainment's about, and we want to give it out, because there's frankly not enough of it being made today. And I like working, at first I was reticent. I'm like one of those creators, I want to do it all myself. But I knew very early on, that's why I got with John, trusted him, worked with him with things that we never got published, but things, we have done some things through the years. And usually he'd do pinups and help me develop stuff, and but with John, he always puts his take on it. Like he changed the helmet design for my original, maybe for the better, maybe not. He will have different helmet designs through the decades and stuff, and actually it is working kind of like the one thing I am taking from Dr. Fate. The helmet is messing with him, messing with his memory and kind of, he is being controlled. I don't want to give away too much about it, but I think I have to hook people with the story,
Right. Well, yeah. We're running about out of time, so if there's any final thoughts you have.
Well, the meaning of life.
Hold your peace, sir.
If somebody said, "What's the meaning of life?" The meaning, and since you are Christian brothers, I guess I don't know, but the meaning of life to me, in everything that you instill in comics is, an outgrowth of your life experiences. So if you haven't experienced much, you're probably not gonna. I've experienced a lot. But the meaning of life to me is that God so wanted to be in fellowship with his creation of man, knowing that he would fail and stumble, but loving us even when we were deniers of him, and his existence, is that he wanted a bride for his son. I mean, he didn't have to create a known universe. He had perfect unity between the Trinity, but he loved us so much to create mankind. And I know God gets blamed for a lot of the woes. Look it up, man. He just wants a relationship with you. It's not about religion. It's about relationship. And, that's my final thoughts, is that he wanted a bride for his son, and we're the bride of Christ, believers, and that I really had to grapple with that. How do I work that into a comic? Well, Devil Flower is kind of a redemption story. He's one of the most unlovable characters, and really with the next story that's going to be told with him in it, 250 years in the Momentum future, you're going to wonder if he's a hero at all. That's the great thing about like Farscape or, Voyager. You can go out there and just tell, it's a blank slate. You can tell whatever story you want, kind of like a what if story or a just imagine story. So, it's all about people and community. That's what's important. Comics are a sideline, they're probably unimportant in the grand scheme of things, but I definitely had to grapple with how can I do comics, something I want to do, and also instill, remain true to God. That was a big struggle for me, but I think I found a way to do it, and that wasn't an easy task for me, because I with everything I want to honor God, and do it in a spirit of excellence. final thoughts.
All right.
And
All
check
right,
me out
we really-
daily.
Absolutely. That's the 4 o'clock shadow on YouTube. Again, we'll have that link in the description. It's YouTube at Devil Flyer Momentum.
Yeah, I hope you
it
guys
looks like
will
it's the
want to
link.
come on sometime and talk comics over there on my channel.
That would be good. We'd have to schedule a time when I am not wage slaving, but we could probably figure something out.
And we do, I don't just do 4 Central every day. I stream, that's the great thing. When I'm not working my day job, which is seasonal, I can absolutely accommodate other times for people. I'm pretty open. Now I'm getting ready to gear up again, and that even limits how many shows I can go on, because I do go on Red Valkyrie show. I've been co-hosting with Apex Comics over 2 years. I do go on Topicless. I do go on Lorenzo Sleestacks every now and then. I go on
Lorenzo, shout out Lorenzo.
Yeah, some lizard representation.
That guy has some hot takes sometimes.
Yeah, I guess he does. Yeah.
Clearly, we're just the most reputable people here at church.
Well,
I think tonight we succeeded, guys. We preached the gospel of comics.
I've been known to have a little more bourbon than I had this evening, but we won't talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, but church. Imagine
if
you didn't have your breakfast.
Talk about it later behind the scenes. Let's get drunk, guys. What?
Just ask Dillard about it.
Okay.
He has some good stories about church being drunk.
I mean,
I don't want to know.
we have a good story about church being drunk.
Yeah. Called Dillard the N-word on the show one day.
What?
In a bad way.
Wow.
Darn.
Whoa.
Yeah. And why are you gay?
But anyway,
I've enjoyed it, guys.
We
Thanks for
appreciated
having
having
me
you on. Yes, sir. And we hope to do so again. Give us a shout about when we will be able to come on your show, and we'll get that scheduled and in the works.
I don't know. I think this man has been a terrible influence on me, because I've been over here writing script for a comic book that will probably never see the light of day.
Yeah.
It's been inspiring me to do my other job, church.
Somebody
Maybe,
had
Glad I can help.
Nothing good can come of this.
We're all headed towards the apocalypse.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, I will bid you adieu, and we will see you next time.
Good night, everybody.
Guys.
Hey, Ayrton, remember to...
God damn it, Ayrton, I am going to kill you.